Good afternoon. I'm Eric Linask with TMC, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all and to kick off today's live webinar. Today's session is called Why Contact Center as a Service and Why Now? You know, I think when we ask this question, why is now the time to be thinking about contact center as a service, or for that matter, why are we ever talking about contact center technology? The conversation is really about customer service or customer satisfaction or customer experience. Really take your pick of those terms. It all really comes down to how well your customer-facing teams are able to deliver on customers' expectations. And speaking of those expectations, one of the things that we know is that customer service is becoming a more important factor when it comes to brand selection, brand loyalty, purchasing decisions, and sharing information. In fact, more than half of customers today say they have higher expectations for customer service than they did just a year ago. And if you look at just the millennial generation, and it's important to consider them, considering that they are now the largest single population group in the workforce, that figure is almost at 2/3. So what happens when businesses are not able to deliver on those higher expectations? Well, you've all seen the figures. It's simple. They lose customers, which means they lose business. Now, the statistics vary, but there are so many surveys out there that show this growing tendency for customers to avoid vendors from whom they've received poor customer service. And let's not forget that they share those experiences with others, amplifying the impact. But they also value high quality, good customer service. And millennials in particular, they're about as likely to share positive customer experiences as they are the negative ones. So those count. And in fact, 70% of consumers today say they've made conscious choices to support companies that deliver great customer service. That's all well and good, but to know one other thing is that while all these higher expectations exist, customers don't necessarily expect that they're going to get something for nothing. And both consumers and business purchasers alike say that they are willing to pay a little more for great customer experiences. In general, Americans are willing to pay 17% more. Millennials, even more than that. They say that they pay 21% more for great CX. So really, focusing on the customer experience is a no-brainer, especially when you factor in the potential results and the benefits and the revenue gains. The question is how you're going to do that. And overwhelmingly today, the answer should be by implementing cloud-based solutions. They're easy to deploy, they're cost-effective, they're scalable, they're feature-rich, much more so than traditional alternatives. They're easily updated with the latest functionality, and there are even many more benefits that we'll get into today. But I don't want to spoil everything that our presenters are going to talk about today, and I do have two great presenters with me today to take you on this journey through Contact Center as a Service, and they are Nicole Pascal, who is the Senior Product Marketing Manager for MyCloud Connect CX at Mitel, and Evan Dobkin, who is Senior Manager for Product Marketing at TalkDesk. But before I hand it over to Nicole to get us started, I do want to throw one poll question towards you and our audience to help Nicole kind of understand who you are in our audience, where you stand with regards to what you're doing in your contact center and specifically your cloud implementation. So put the question up for you. What best describes your organization's current adoption or plans for Contact Center as a Service? You've implemented, not expanding or upgrading. You are expanding or upgrading your implementation. You're planning to implement in the next 12 months. Or you're planning to implement in the next 2 years. Just a couple of quick other programming notes before I hand it over to Nicole and while you guys answer this question for us. We do have a Q&A session built into the end of our session. If you have any questions, you do have an interface on your screens, and I encourage you to submit those questions to us at any time. Also, if you have some follow-up questions, you want more information from the team at Mitel or TalkDesk, contact information as well as details on how you can access the archived version of today's event will be in your inboxes tomorrow. So with that, again, not to spoil everything today, but I'm happy to hand today's presentation over to Nicole Pascal from Mitel, who is going to get us started. And Nicole, do you want to take a look and see what our audience is telling us about the survey question?
Yes, let's. Thank you so much. Hey, everyone. This is Nicole, and Nicole Pascal, and I support the CCaaS portfolio at Mitel. And it looks like today we have quite a few people who have implemented CCaaS, so that's great, or are looking to expand and plan in the planning stages. So today we're going to be kind of going over all about why customer experience is becoming more and more important in today's world, why businesses are looking at customer experience as a driving factor in their business, and then going into why CCaaS. And for that section of the of this work, I'm going to be turning that over to Evan from TalkDesk, and he's going to be talking about why cloud contact centers and why this is the time to disrupt and why this disruption is happening today. And then we're just going to take a quick peek at Mitel's new contact center as a service, MyCloud Connect CX, which is powered by our friends at TalkDesk. So we are living in the experience economy. When we look at recent years, when consumers are faced with the opportunity to buy a physical product versus an experience such as a live event or something that they can share with their friends, consumers are increasingly moving towards purchasing experiences. So experiences over goods, experiences that they're able to share with others, experiences that they're able to have memories and take pictures of and share online, you name it. So not surprisingly, these consumers are looking at businesses that they're interacting with as an experience as well. So the way that businesses communicate, the way that businesses interact with their customers, I mean, that's at the heart of that experience that they're providing to those customers or those consumers. And contact centers are essential, and they're a huge part of delivering those experiences to these new consumers. Customers today are demanding multiple methods of interaction. Their expectations of companies are rising. Service at any time, they want rapid responses. The businesses wanting to be able to compete in their market must make that digital transformation to be able to better communicate with those customers and and meet those expectations that they have. Consumers are out there, they're demanding the flexibility to be able to interact with companies on any channel that they choose. And those choices, those channels, they're continuing to broaden. We see one lit up almost, every few months, a new communication channel or a new social channel that we have to interact with businesses on. So customer experience is the new battlefield for companies out there that are wanting to gain a competitive advantage with their customers. And according to Walker, by 2020, just next year, customer experience will overtake both price and product as a key brand differentiator. So success in the future will be about customer experience. Leading companies out there, they're understanding that they are now in the customer experience business and that how an organization delivers for its customers is beginning to be just as important and will be more important than what it actually delivers. So for these leading companies, the contact centers, they've become a strategic asset within their business, one that must match and go beyond their customers' expectations as they continue to interact together. But many contact centers are out there, they're falling short in this digital economy that we're living in with all of these different channels of communication. Today, 70% of customers, 70% of their customer journeys are starting on a digital channel. So most customers first contact a company through a website, through a mobile application, device, or some other type of digital channel. And then when their needs are not necessarily met on those channels or they need additional information, then they contact a company on a live interaction channel. But the problem is that only 1% of those customers, or 1% of that data from the customers, that digital data, is actually being used for more effective engagement to better that customer's journey. So there's a huge gap between the customer's digital experience, what they go through to get to that live interaction with the business, and what that live agent understands about that customer. And we've all experienced it when we have to repeat information to an agent that we've already provided somewhere else, right? And actually, it just happened to me yesterday. I was thinking about this. I was doing my expenses and needed to get a folio from a recent hotel stay that I misplaced. So I contacted the hotel via the website, and then I received a response on email. The email indicated they couldn't find the folio, couldn't place it, so I had to call. Called in, explained myself for the second time to a live agent. The live agent looked into it, could not find it, transferred me to a manager. So this is now my third time I have to explain the exact same thing, all still without getting any sort of answer. And actually, I'm still waiting for my folio, so that's the end of that story. But in the end, I ended up explaining myself, the exact same information, through four different channels, whether it was the 3 live people I spoke to or the email itself or the initial thing. And that's a terrible experience. So why in today's world that we're living in, we're always talking about digital transformation, why is there this gap between the customer, between me and the business I'm trying to interact with? And the reason is because while many established companies, I mean, I was talking to Marriott, I don't want to throw them out, but it was a little small hotel chain, but while many established enterprises, they focused on digital transformation in lots of other areas of the business, the contact center itself has been left behind. Not intentionally, it's just that 80% of contact centers out there are run on 30-plus-year-old legacy systems. So that means, you know, they're built before the advent of digital. They're built before the advent of mobile. And some, if you take a look at the history, even before the internet. So these systems are rigid. They're expensive to maintain and update and become quite siloed within the organization. So they're stuck in innovation stagnation. And even first-generation cloud systems, they can't really provide that enterprise scalability and flexibility that today's customer expectations demand for businesses. Both legacy and first-generation cloud, they both require a significant amount of professional services to be able to fit new customer interaction points and fit that into a customizable contact center system. So it makes it pretty costly and time-consuming as well to keep pace with all of these ever-evolving technologies and customer expectations that are out there. So it's no wonder that the typical customer experience when engaging with an older or more inflexible contact center becomes pretty unsatisfactory, like it was for me yesterday. And customer experiences, when they're not met, customers aren't happy. Today's consumers demand a lot, and if they don't get it, they're moving on. If they have a bad interaction, they're not sticking around if it's a first interaction with a company. And there's a huge disconnect between what companies out there believe that they're delivering and then what the customer is actually going through and what the customer perceives. 80% of companies think that they are delivering superior service, the best top-notch service. But only 8% of their customers actually would say the same thing. And that's a really, really big disconnect. And as I said, customers are talking, whether it's, walking away from the business or just talking about it, posting about it. They're just typing away with their fingers. They're letting other people know that their experience is not great. And 59% said they would try a new brand for a better customer experience. So the cost of not meeting those customer experiences is enormous. You've probably heard other related stats like this, but according to Forbes, $62 billion was lost last year due to poor customer service. That number is up from 50% from 2 years ago. And then Bain & Company, which is a major management consulting company, noted that it costs 6 to 7 times more to acquire a new customer than to retain an existing one. So losing those customers, current customers that have a bad experience, especially new customers that have a bad experience, it's just money walking out the door. But on the flip side, according to Forrester research, just a 10% improvement in customer experience for a company has $1 billion revenue impact. So companies are bleeding customers, basically, and money, using these older, outdated legacy systems to engage with today's digital customers. And these statistics illustrate why customer experience is a top priority out there. And it brings us to the topic of why CCaaS, why now? And Evan from TalkDesk is going to talk to you a little bit more about that.
Hello, everyone. So it's my favorite question. Why CCaaS, why now? Well, why not? What is holding somebody back from making this change? Importantly, it's something, and I was pleased with we constrained the results of the poll, but I think that everybody's in a mode at a minimum of evaluating CCaaS, what cloud solutions would work for their company. And important, it's taking a step back and saying strategically, what are the things that are going on at my company that a shift to cloud contact center would help solve, would help get us into the next stage, would help us reach the business outcomes that we're looking to create and end up with. So buying something because it's cloud isn't necessarily the best perspective, but it's saying, I've taken a look at my business with my partners, with my vendors, and said, I think this move would help push us to the next level. And so, when we tell the story of contact center, let me tell you a short story about contact center. Well, let's go back 50 years and see where does the contact center story actually begin. It doesn't start in 1876 with the invention of the telephone necessarily, but that definitely is where the whole story begins. So the telephone's invented in 1876, but we're really looking and moving forward and saying the thing that was invented in 1894, the switchboard, that held very strong for the next pretty much 70 years, that manual switchboard in a lot of cases, as the way that people were able to get in contact with each other and then get in contact with the businesses that they were buying from. Now, the first contact centers really begin to emerge in the 1960s. The reason that they started to emerge was not necessarily because people were looking to do something that was customer-centric. That's something that's really more of a recent change for businesses overall. In fact, the first contact centers began because the technology was enabling them to do so cheaper, at a scale that was more easy for them to do, and realistically it was the biggest businesses in the country, by and large, were the ones who were opening contact center. So it did bring efficiency and cost savings to those businesses. Now, the big jump forward was the emergence of the web in the early 90s, from being an academic endeavor, a military endeavor with the internet, to something that would now start supporting customer service endeavors and people making their claim and stepping into the web and by and large doing it as a marketing effort. But the people who were putting their businesses up on the web as a place to say, hey, contact us here, came in with the belief that doing so was going to help them divert attention away from the phone channel, from calling in directly, speaking to expensive agents. Even at the time, not IVRs, but really just phone routing systems, press 1 and press 2, were generally as advanced as things were getting. So companies who started in saying, hey, we're going to put out the first live chat products up on our website. We're going to let it so that you can email us directly through the website, or here's an email address you can contact us through. Well, what they found out was this just invited a higher volume overall of contacts and didn't necessarily divert calls away from the contact center. In fact, it made the call center even more important, where if people now weren't getting the service that they wanted through these online channels, the contact center was becoming the place where they were taking their now frustrated scenarios and moving forward with it. So the big leap forward from there was really about 10 years ago, where support through social media and remote support was popping up. And again, people took to social media as organizations to promote themselves. They opened up Facebook pages, they started Twitter accounts saying, hey, look at the cool stuff that we're selling. Customers do not think in channels. Customers just see it as a place where they can contact you. And if it's a place that I can contact you, I'm going to contact you about customer service requests and customer service issues that I've got. And so where are we really recently? Well, we've added a whole lot more complexity in the last few years. Mobile support, and it changed, the way that people have contacted companies through their mobile devices has changed things drastically. I'd say that it's probably added about half as many new channels as there were just before that. Being able to do video chat through your desktop or your mobile device. Chatbots have become extremely popular for marketing purposes, for data collection purposes, a lot of times for helping triage ahead of speaking to a live person. And in some cases, people are providing support through chatbots. But the best case scenario for that is people have identified very targeted ways to provide those chatbots. And then lastly, people trying to figure out how does artificial intelligence help them. I'll go back to the thing I said first about cloud. It relates to AI. That AI is part of a strategy to help you reach your goals and progress your company forward. It's not necessarily something that you should just be going, how can AI help me? Well, let's find out what the goals of the company are and then see if AI can be applied to those things. And so innovation is being stifled on a company level, on a business level, by the technologies often that are already in place. The company that says, I don't really need to switch off my premise contact center or my premise IVR because it just works, they're not seeing a bigger picture. It just works for them. But it is stifling them from being able to add new features, add new channels, hit new metrics, add new KPIs into the mix. And it's really an older way of thinking when somebody says it just works, because it just works for them. It doesn't work better for your employees. It doesn't work better for your end customers. And one of the ways that I challenge customers when they say something like that is, call your own IVR and tell me, if you were a customer, does that work for you? And the answer by and large, one, is that they don't often call their IVR. Who calls their own company's IVR in most cases? So they're surprised by what they find. And two, the surprise is that, no, it's not really very friendly. It's not easily updated. It doesn't have things like real speech recognition. It's not actually an IVR. It's a lot of press 1, press 2, tell me these options, but it's not interactive when it comes to the voice side of things. And so this shift, merging these timelines together to say contact center as a service really started as something about a new perspective. We can trace today's contact center back to the 70s and 80s. These are those older legacy systems that people still have in place in many organizations. If you think about how many big financial institutions still have green screens and mainframes that are part of the mix, that's a really easy correlation to the IVR or the ACD or the PBX that's just sitting in a box, collecting dust somewhere inside of a server room or even in a closet at an office space. And so we can really trace the contact center as a service of today to the rise of Salesforce.com. This followed, this shift away from on-premise software really came at the tail end of what they were doing by creating a significant enterprise software that was 100% in the cloud. So where we started to see this early 2000s first wave of contact center as a service. By and large, though, what these were taking on-premise contact centers and either just moving it into an online scenario, into an online deployment, or in some ways they may have been refactored, and in less cases, these people were writing contact center for the cloud from scratch. That's really the smallest number of providers who are coming out with this at the time. And so we're in phase 2, wave 2 of contact center as a service. And this is what TalkDesk and Mitel are bringing to the market, is a software that was born and bred and 100% built in the cloud and for the cloud. Everybody knows the story, or the saying, the early bird gets the worm, but not everybody knows the story necessarily about the first mouse and the second mouse. The first mouse is the one who went out, discovered the trap, saw the cheese, and unfortunately was the one who, in getting the cheese, learned the hard way. The trap slams shut, and that mouse is no more. The second mouse is the one who is able to come and see that first mouse and what happened, why it happened. All right, if I see another trap, what am I going to do differently to be able to get the cheese and get out of there with my head still on my shoulders? So, what we're looking at now is the shift away from things that were built on premise to moving premise things to the cloud, to starting to build things that were part of that first cloud offering 5 to 10 years ago, to something where we're 100% built for the cloud, that we're built on an architecture of microservices, that we're understanding, that we need strengthened APIs for bidirectional data movements and simple integrations. And so what we really saw with, on-premise, well, we all know what on-premise is all about. The first wave, though, what we have to pay attention to is that it was quicker to scale than previous, but when it came to upgrades, and there was a lot of downtime in upgrades. Things had to be taken offline, multiple hours of upgrades were applied, and even the initial deployment, we're talking about quarters, most of the year, to get a first wave cloud contact center or contact center as a service stood up, running, configured, tested, and so forth. Whereas the second wave of that, where we're at right now, deployment is done rapidly. Adoption is even more rapid just because of the types of interfaces and pre-configurations that are available. And there's a lot less probability of errors and downtime. In fact, things are pushed now through a continuous update and delivery system where software updates happen automatically in incremental fashions, and then things are turned on incrementally as well. So you're not necessarily having to wait for some massive annual update for a particular feature that you were waiting for to be applied. Or if you're still on premise, understanding that you're going to get an early adopter version, things are going to go down. Maybe you have to duplicate and run it as a test bed. Maybe that data that you've gotten through all of your testing may or may not move over. All of that's going away. It should be going away while you're evaluating a new contact center provider. And so our future is really bright. The investment, not just from the customer side, but inside of our industry, the investment is significant on our own. These are the numbers of what companies are investing in developing contact center as a service, as well as what people are investing in saying, hey, we're going to make this part of our enterprise. Prem really has, here, I'll skip ahead to that. 36% of contact centers currently use cloud technology. That's the interesting thing about cloud, is that you can add it incrementally and say, there's a service that I want to add on to our existing mix. It's in the cloud. I'm going to pull that in, and that kind of can serve as a test area for what we're doing. According to Gartner, because their annual Magic Quadrant on contact center infrastructure was retired, we're taking that as on-premise having reached its capacity. On-premise has reached full maturity, and the likelihood is that they're going to be incorporating things that are native to cloud and sitting off to the side to push those on-premise contact centers even further. And the mentality around contact center is shifting. So yes, reducing costs. That was the original iteration of why add a contact center, was because costs were lowered. It'll help us make things more efficient, and it'll simplify getting customer service out to their customers. But that, again, is a way of getting yourself to this place, but that's not the thinking that should carry you forward in your decision making. And so what is the value of the contact center? Well, the effectiveness in delivering service and support maximize that team, or those multiple teams now, their ability to perform that task. We're going to be creating more customer loyalty and generating advocates on behalf of our organizations with better customer service experiences. This is what the differentiation is. if things are able to be commoditized more quickly, if it's tougher for customers to distinguish between a bunch of companies' products, let's say as a cell phone provider, if they're coming in and saying, okay, our service is what's going to keep you here. It's the same Apple phone, the same Google phone that you can buy from any of us. The networks, by and large, are the same, depending on some small regional differences. Well, what is the difference? It's how we treat you as a customer. It's how you interact with us, how much you trust us. Those are the differentiators, and the front line of that in most cases is the contact center. And now it's a place to gain a strategic advantage. The contact center has historically generated significant amounts of data. And so creating intelligence from that data that can be shared to marketing, to the CIO's office, to the CTO's office, to the new C-level roles like CXO and CCO, being able to provide actionable intelligence is often going to come from the contact center, and a modern platform that can handle all of that big data initiative that companies have been going through the past 5 to 10 years is a key mover. And so again, how do we set ourselves apart? How do we differentiate on customer experience? Well, it's tough for a company to say, I can do something other than copying the product and the price. Those are easy. But they can't copy the you, what makes your company special and why customers want to stay with you. I mean, right now, though, the average agent is looking at 7 different screens or systems on their average desktop. It's really, really hard for them to maintain a high level of service when they're so distracted by all of these disconnected systems and a process that doesn't allow them to focus on the customer during the interaction. And this is what agents say is the thing that's preventing them from being the most effective and successful. Going back to the example earlier from Nicole, the number one thing that customers complain about is having to repeat themselves. The number one thing that agents complain about is having to navigate this myriad number of screens and desktops. And so the contact center is at the heart of this integrated strategy. We want to make things uncomplicated. We want to make using a contact center for the agent or for the customer engaging with the contact center as easy and familiar as it is that they're using their normal apps and online services on a day-to-day basis. We need to understand and apply a centricity, the way that we're saying every company now wants to be customer-centric. Every contact center should be agent-centric as well. Putting out tools that are familiar, shortening that onboarding process, reducing that adoption curve. Those are all things that are possible right now for the supervisors and the managers, making it easy for them to start diving down on data, rearranging their screens and their big displays up in the office to show the KPIs that are important to them and show things in real time. And lastly, the data and analytics, every company now is very focused on these two things. Being able to create actionable items as quick as possible from real-time data, to be able to create historical data sets quickly and easily on a day-to-day basis or on demand as needed are really important. So companies need to start to understand who they want to become, what data is important to them, what are the outcomes that they're looking for, and then work backward to say, what is the data that we need and how do we organize it to make that possible? And so I'd like to turn it back over to Nicole to talk about our partnership.
Thanks, Evan. Let me get back into, lost control for a second. There we go, yes. All right, so MyCloud Connect CX is a new CCaaS offering that is powered by TalkDesk. We have partnered with TalkDesk to be able to extend our business communications with this flexible, innovative, and very, sorry, I was just, I had a cough there. And I was saying that we've partnered together to be able to extend our business communications with some of the next generation contact center functionality that TalkDesk is innovating on. So MyCloud Connect CX is an enterprise class contact center, and some of the key benefits that make it that we're really excited about bringing to the Mitel portfolio is that it is enterprise class. The fact that it is has high availability. It is has a ton of different compliances and certifications. Provides a lot of availability, on-demand global scalability, but it does all of this with consumer simplicity. So it is powerfully simple. It allows businesses to be able to have this very robust contact center that meets the needs of today's digital consumers, but they don't necessarily need to be able to have a training certification to be able to run the contact center or know how to code. So there's a lot of ability to make some changes within the contact center with clicks, not code, making it very easy and fast to change and be flexible and customized to who their customers are. Another thing we're really excited about is the intelligence that is infused throughout the platform. By infusing all of the our AI capabilities into all of the different nooks and crannies of the platform, it starts to be able to reveal a lot of customer insights and trends, able to drive predictive recommendations. So be able to optimize that agent and contact center efficiency to better get the customer agent engagement off to a better track. So they're able to keep some of that contextual information as well and make better decisions. Another area that I talked about was the adaptability of it. It's with our partnership with HuckDesk, this ConnectCX platform is going to be able to shift as customer expectations change, needing a different access to different channels, different capabilities, different capacities. This ConnectCX platform is able to adapt to those differing environments and actually extend the communications with just one click, integrating it into other business apps so it stays connected. They're going to be able to connect to the unique tools that that particular business uses every day while still maintaining visibility into all the different systems. ConnectCX also supports very deep pre-built integrations into Salesforce, Zendesk, a lot of other help desk and CRM vendors as well. And then with the full suite of APIs, it allows maximization of every customer interaction to be able to quickly access that contextual information so they can see where the customer has come from, whether they've come from the website, whether they've already interacted 2 or 3 times with the business. And those are just some of the things we're really excited about, but we're also really excited about the partnership itself. You know, TalkDesk's customers absolutely love them. We hear great things within the market, and we wanted to partner with somebody who is out there really driving the innovation in the contact center market. So with the speed of development, with the customer service and customer care that we've seen there, the ease of implementation, the quick setup, the reliability and availability, and the more flexible deployment models, that is something we're really excited about with TalkDesk, and their customers, as I said, are seeing results. And I apologize, I was not flipping through those slides. Here we go. Here we are. Let's get to that one. There we go. Customers are getting results. And, you know, they're seeing 19% CSAT improvements within their businesses, 23% wait time reductions. So powered by TalkDesk, the ConnectCX platform really extends extends our business communications with some of the next-gen contact center as a service innovations that are coming out there. With MyCloud plus Connect CX, MyCloud Connect, our UCaaS offering. We're really trying to focus our entire cloud portfolio on providing the exceptional experiences, whether that's from the team collaboration approach, an agent experience, customer interactions, business development, just a transformative communication experience from all perspectives. Very excited about that. And if you want to have any other additional information, we'd love to hear from you. I do want to go ahead and quickly see if anybody would be interested in getting a Connect CX, a little bit more information about it, and then turn it over to some Q&As as well. I see some questions coming in. Let's see. We do have a question for, or is this part of this? Would you like to take the Q&A part?
Nicole, do you want me to jump in and handle the Q&A? I'm happy to do that for you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll leave the question up there to make sure everybody has a chance to answer and let you guys know who's interested in learning more about MyCloud Connect CX. But in the meantime, we do have some questions already in. If you haven't submitted your questions, please do that. We'll get to them as they come in. Let's start with this one for Evan. Evan, what are some of the ways that people have begun transitioning to cloud contact centers without a full replacement?
All right, interesting question. So a lot of companies can, well, first off, I would say do this in concert with your IT group. Avoid shadow IT and, creating something off to the side that does not involve, the IT group and knowing what you're doing. So in doing so, what a lot of companies will do is identify part of the contact center, maybe by profile, by role, and say, we would like to block off this group, and you can adopt a cloud contact center, which based on a particular group, maybe a certain phone number, there's a bunch of different phone numbers, or even an option inside of the IVR that might sit in front of the contact center and say, all right, just for subscription renewals, if that's something that your organization does and that's a particular group that handles that inside of the contact center, you can stand up a small contact center as a service and route just that traffic over to there. So maybe that's 5% of total traffic or 10%, as opposed to moving the whole contact center over at once. You can run this as a proof of concept or a pilot program to look and see, maybe I put a better IVR option that cloud contact center offers, so that if somebody clicks subscription renewals, maybe that they can do a bit more inside of the IVR to automatically renew. If it's something where they want to talk to somebody, maybe it'll gather a little bit more information about them first before it heads to an agent. And then that agent inside of this cloud contact center can handle their call as normal with these new options, with these new desktops. And then you can start to compare KPIs and metrics while only addressing, again, just that very small part of the contact center, and going with a vendor that will allow you to do so on a usage basis, as opposed to paying for a bunch of licenses up front.
Awesome, thank you, Evan. And any of these questions, I certainly welcome either or both of you to jump in if you have thoughts. What about businesses? There's so many businesses out there that have to contend with regulations, whether they're HIPAA or GDPR or countless other ones. How do those play in when transitioning to a cloud-based contact center?
I can take that. So that is in part about the cloud contact center, versus an on-premise contact center. It's really more about the company as opposed to the contact center. But one of the benefits of cloud contact center in this scenario is the speed at which a new compliance and certification can be added versus a hosted or an on-premise provider. So in going with somebody who's cloud, let's say, TalkDesk has, I think, like close to 30 certifications. But let's say it was one that was unique to your industry that we may not have. It's something that is much like the rest of the company, it's something that the agility of a cloud contact center provider should allow them to pursue that much more quickly in the course of doing business with you, and not 6 months to a year, something like that. Again, depending on the complexity of that compliance or regulation.
Thanks, Evan. Nicole, you talked earlier during the presentation about the idea of turning the contact center into really a strategic asset that aligns with the rest of the enterprise vision. Do you have any suggestions or thoughts on how to measure the success of that change in strategy?
Sorry, I was talking on mute there. Did you measure the success of the contact center?
Yes.
Is that what you were saying? Yeah. So one of the, we all are dependent upon the numbers these days. We have to measure things. And one of the great things about Connect CX is that, or, a lot of CCaaS services is going to be the ability to measure different KPIs, different operational efficiencies within contact centers, and make sure that those numbers are going up. So the ability to measure is there, and it's the flexibility to kind of decide which areas within your business are going to be most necessary to see those numbers increase, to get that success going. That is measurable. So.
Thank you, Nicole. Evan, you talked about the idea of simplifying onboarding when transitioning to the cloud. What does the onboarding process entail? And I guess specifically, when we're talking about some of the new features and capabilities that agents may not be used to, if they're coming from a traditional model, how do you ensure that they're able to pick up quickly enough and be able to deliver a high-level customer experience with these new features and capabilities? Evan, did we lose Evan?
I'm still here. Can you hear me? Was I talking into space?
Yeah.
I was talking into space. Okay. Okay. So what I would say is the important thing is really around one, constant engagement between vendor and customer. I can say, coming from a contact center provider who had kind of the full suite but wasn't in this space yet for the cloud, one of the most important things is having a constant conversation between vendor and customer, which, at least at my time at TalkDesk, I've seen is a really important thing and something that's always taking place. One of the things that follows that is, with a cloud contact center vendor, the ability to do early adopter programs. As we, product development is what we think is important as evaluating the marketplace and seeing where trends are going, but also taking into account feedback from customers about what it is they need to be able to do and where they want to grow. So features are definitely produced in tandem with customer feedback. In a lot of those cases, they'll get early access notification, say, hey, we're developing this. Do you want to be, on the early access program? Do you want to help us test this? And in a lot of those cases, by the time the feature is released into GA, into general availability, a lot of customers have already been using it with TalkDesk. But the onboarding process for anybody else who may not have been, generally customers should be aware that things are coming. But two, cloud contact center should be designed, the interfaces and the features, so that onboarding time is not disruptive. One of the worst things that software can be is disruptive to the business itself. So we try to avoid that in making sure that things can be easily picked up, that when a new product, and we see this a lot, when a new feature is released possibly overnight, that the next morning we go in and check reports and we see that there's dozens or hundreds of customers already using this new feature and starting to customize it for themselves. And really at the foundation of that, going all the way back to the original engagement, is getting together with a vendor on the cloud side who can help you get stood up and running in weeks, not months, or months and not quarters, depending on the scale of the implementation.
Thanks, Evan. And we have a follow-up question to the regulatory question earlier. How do you handle PCI redaction and personal info redaction?
Well, that can be handled through partners that we have or add-on products. I mean, we do have PCI certification through these, and this is about when credit card information might be entered over the phone, that the call is effectively kind of soft transferred and split over to where the customer can enter in the data using the touch tone from their credit card, and the agent is effectively silent and they can't hear anything that's going on at that time. So it's really about kind of creating those walls, joining the calls back together afterwards if the customer and the agent need to speak again, and then having the software itself and potentially and effectively the data centers also being PCI certified.
Great, thank you. Now, you guys have both talked about the need to focus on CX and why cloud is a fantastic way of going about that. What reasons would there be? What reasons have you come across with customers who have been reticent to transition to cloud, and how have you overcome that?
Evan, did you want to take that one?
Sure. I mean, people tend to just be skittish about change, and in this case about moving something that they have physical control over, to another organization. But one of the key ways of thinking about this is the important thing for any company to do is focus on the thing that they're going to market with the thing that they're best at. And generally speaking, for almost any company, the thing that they are not best at is managing all of the underpinnings of a contact center. And that isn't to say that we're getting rid of the IT people. As Cloud Contact Center first came up, that was one of the things that, people were saying, well, you get rid of your IT people. No, the IT people are going to shift and learn new things and be managing the contact center in a very different way than having to think about cards and boards and copper and physical boxes and local data centers. So moving and shifting resources away from the things that a company does not need to be in control over is one of the key ways. I mean, if you even reduce this down to other parts of the business, most companies are engaging with a cleaning and janitorial service that comes in at night. They're not generally hiring their own staff who's going to be doing that over the course of the day or over the course of the night when no one's there. It's a continuance that everybody, is just honing in and saying, let's be the best at the thing that we're taking to market and wanting to be good at. Then, the efficiencies, the cost savings, the abilities to modernize, the scale of doing so with a cloud provider versus an on-premise provider are drastic. And being able to see those, and once we can get to a stage where the customers say, let's plug your numbers in, let's talk about real cost savings and see what are your per minute rates, what is the cost of managing the expenses, what is the cost of not doing things, is a really important way of also looking at this. The cost of standing still can be really expensive.
Great, thank you, Evan. It really sounds like that's very much in line with the discussion about cloud solutions in general. So great to see there's a lot of consistency there. That actually takes us to the end of the time that we have for our session today. If there are additional questions that you have that we haven't gotten to, or additional ones that come up once we're offline, you will have contact information in your inboxes tomorrow, as well as details on the on-demand version of today's webinar, and certainly feel free to share that with any of your colleagues who weren't able to join us live today. I want to thank Nicole and Evan for taking time out of their days to share some of their expertise with us, and of course a warm thank you to everybody in our audience. We know that your time is valuable and appreciate you spending a little bit of it with us today. So with that, we are out of time this afternoon. Have a fantastic day, everybody.